Shalom. Kol halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Abishai Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors into the apostles, double honors into the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathens that look like the heathen nations. And to the Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you another lesson in truth. And this is going to be part two of how white folks got so rich, the untold story of American white supremacy. Remember, whiteness is made up. It's pseudoscience. They created it. They lied about it. Just like they lie with their fake statistics. I'll give you the references that you can check. You can check with the historian Theodore Allen, and you can check with Professor Dr. Jacqueline Badalora on the creation of white people. The Lord didn't create any such thing as black people and white people. That's a social construct that was created so that they could use it to advance themselves. So I'm in this book. I'm going to start it on page 8. And then I'm beginning right here in the second paragraph, and it reads, Black make up an unlucky 13% of the U.S. population, but own a meager 2.6% of America's total wealth. That's a fabrication. There's way more so-called black people than that. All right, with all the growth and all the, the numbers, the teenage pregnant, when white people were waiting until they were 40-year-olds to have babies, in the 60s and 70s. 80s, Jake, both so-called black and brown, were having children in their teenage years and in their young adult years, early 20s, late teens, sometimes even early teens. So that, and they also create this whole mixed race stuff, and then they don't count them. So that's just it's all a lie. All right, matter of fact, this is Job 13:4, and it reads, But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. All right. They just lie about science, about DNA, about statistics and numbers. They use that stuff, to advance themselves. This is us, 1 Timothy 6:20, and it reads, O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings of oppositions of science, falsely so called. So they use opposition science, this in opposition to the truth, opposition to history, opposition to the Lord, to once again to control the narrative, to keep themselves in that top position. Okay, but it says black middle class over the last 30 years have been virtually wiped out by the latest economic downturn, the Great Recession, or the Great Black Depression of 2008. Well, that wiped out a lot of so-called white people too. All right, so the author of the book is being a little extra, biased, because that wiped them out as well. They've been going down ever since. All right, and then what didn't, and those that were left got dismantled by the demic, by the big old corona thing. All right. But it says the U.S. alone spawned over 2 million new millionaires. About half of the world's 33.7 millionaires are American. The number of billionaires worldwide is 1,810, with the number of billionaires living in the U.S. 540, with the combined net worth of 2.4 trillion. And of those American billionaires, half are Jewish. That's probably more than true. It's probably more than that. Though they make up just 2% of the U.S. population. The first black president, all right, who's a Hamite, okay, and I think I showed that in the first video. I'll show it again, all right. They lie, they lie about, they group everyone as dark together for the most part. Even some, I take that back, because some Africans, some people, some Hamites coming from Africa, like Ethiopians, Somalians, and people from that part of the world, they label them as white when they come to America. All right. But let's pull up this receipt from the evidence folder from the Azonovitz Dictionary Bible. We'll show it again. We showed it before. We'll show it again. All right. One thing for sure, they will not make this the, how they like to choose what the thumbnail is going to be in the video. They definitely won't make it this one. All right. But as you can see, it say Ham's the youngest son of Noah, progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, all right, which they're saying some of them are Jewish. Okay. No. And it says, and the Libyans and the Canaanites. So the African nation, the race of people that you see on the right part of the screen, all right, those are the Hamites that make up the dark races, but not the Negroes. And the Negroes are not Japhetic, so the only one left is Shem, the Shemites, all right? And then the Young's Dictionary Bible, it identifies them as the Negroid races, not the Negroid. Who are those Negroid races? The 12 tribes, okay? Let us continue. So the reason why Obama never did anything for the so-called black population here in America is because he's not the same race as them. Obama is a Hamite. He's from the son of Ham, a different dark race of people. All right. It said the black president has been a boon for the white wealthy acquisition, of course, and that's why. All right. When you read about the tumult that was made, the enemies of the Lord in Psalms 83, the Hamites were a part of that. All right. It was the Hamites in Joel that were helping round up the Israelites along with Ishmael, the Arabs, to sell them to the so-called white man. That's in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter. But it says the wealthiest 100 households on Forbes 400 list of richest Americans own about as much wealth as the entire U.S. black population. Can you believe that? It's true. And only 2 people on that list are so-called black: Oprah Winfrey and financier Robert Smith. The combined wealth of the 10 richest blacks totals $10.8 billion, an amount that is only 1/7 of the wealth of Bill Gates, or Bill Gates of hell, all right, whose $81 billion fortune. And so this is kind of old information, okay? Well, actually, this one has been updated to, I think, last year. So, but nevertheless, it says whose $81 billion fortune makes him America's richest man. How much exactly have whites gained their unprecedented 13-to-1 wealth advantage? Was it by merit and hard work, or by investing wisely, pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, or playing by the rules? It was by none of those things. The fact is that they often repeated white mantras, a little more than irrational fantasies, all right? Nonetheless, the public airwaves are filled with the self-righteous pronouncements of commentators anxious to advise blacks to do what whites do, and if they do, they will succeed in America. And that's how they get you, following, buying into their, into their fool system. All right, buying an education only teach you how to be a higher paid slave. If you're an employee, you are a slave. That's literally what the word means. All right, you can read in the books of Ezekiel, the 38th and 39th chapter that talks about the employment. All right, it's a forced labor. All right. Hid behind a word that people don't understand. But it says, not only have they invented a fairy tale about their achievements, that whitewashes a very violent and bloody legacy, but whites promote a parallel fantasy that non-whites are both inherently lazy and naturally inferior, and the wholly responsible for having comparatively nothing. And that's what they push. They push that narrative. All right. The truth is a whole lot nastier than that, and that's a pretty nasty truth right there, man. All right. And this book is going to go deep into some of it. It said the fact is that since the end of legalized slavery, whites have cunningly employed every mechanism of government, religion, private enterprise, specifically to hamstring black prospects for success, which makes me think of the movie Barbarian, when it showed the Roman soldiers that were behind enemy lines. All right, it also proves that so-called Negroes, Judeans, were in the Roman army, and they were trying to rescue a general, and they were behind enemy lines, being pursued by the enemy, also being pursued by a pack of wolves, and they got separated, and the Jake was faster and stronger than his so-called his Edomite counterpart, the so-called white man, and the wolves were gaining on them, and the soldier went down, and when the Jake went back to help him up, the Edomite took his knife and slit the back of his hamstring behind his knee, and so that he wouldn't be faster than him, because he understood he didn't have to outrun the wolves, he just had to outrun him, and so left Jake surrounded. Even though he had his sword and his knife in his hand, he was still surrounded by a pack of wolves while the Edomite got away. So the chance of his survival, without his armor, because they took their armor off so they could be faster. If he was heavily armored, he probably could have killed all the wolves. It still would have been hard with them surrounding him. It wasn't like he could put his back to something. But nevertheless, you get the gist of it. That's why the scripture says, never trust thy enemy. All right? But it says, I just wanted to give you a visual example of what it meant by that when it says, when it reads this: the fact that since the end of legalized slavery, whites have cunningly, so-called whites, I'm going to call them, have cunningly employed every mechanism of government, religion, and private enterprise specifically to hamstring black prospects for success. And some of the America's institutionalized injustices were devilishly ingenious. All sectors of American society harmonized to introduce a series of affirmative action initiatives that gave white people exclusive material advantages, and none have anything whatsoever to do with the merit or hard work. And this is so beyond true. I mean, I received I used to bounce with a buddy of mine, an Italian dude who actually might be Jake himself, but we both took the fireman's test back in the 90s together. I scored higher than him. He got higher than I did not, and about, I would say maybe about a little over 10 years later, I got a $5,000 check. But, okay, that was great. But nevertheless, had I got hired, I'd have made a lot more than $5,000. All right. It says, by gangster force and woolly deception, whites aggressively sabotage black advancement, and this is so beyond true. This is beyond true. They employ domestic terrorism in form of lynching, mob violence. Whites simultaneously crafting policies and laws to gift themselves a vast assortment of privileges, preferences, incentives, subsidies, tax breaks, grants, awards, discounts, exemptions, credits, quotas, deductions, countless other benefits, hoarding the nation's vast resources along strictly racial lines. That makes me think of Isaiah. Man, because they prescribe mischief by law. Probably not going to read that one today, but it's definitely going to come out. But this is because they'll make something unlawful lawful in the benefit of themselves, and they still do that to this day. All right, they even show you it in almost so many movies. They show you instances of this very thing that I'm reading about when I'm talking about. This is Isaiah 10:1, and it reads, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and write grievousness which they have prescribed." And this is what they do. This is how they get ahead. All right. Let's go to Sirach, the book of Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, or the much easier said Sirach. That's why I always say Sirach, so people don't confuse Ecclesiasticus with Ecclesiastes. But the book of Sirach, 10:8, I believe. Yes, and it reads, "Because of unrighteous dealings and injuries and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another." All right. "Why is earth and ashes proud? There is not more wicked thing than a covetous man, for such is one that setteth up his own soul for sale, because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels." So these people, did all manner of wicked things in order to keep the top position. And people died and suffered as a result of it, so that because they are covetous, because they want more than what they even need. All right. So with that, I'm going to give all praises, all honor and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak, Wadash, Wa Abba, Babal, Kwam, Yasharala, Shalom. See you on the next lesson.